And my friend Jonathan Marshall here, master modeler, without a doubt. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
So before the break, we were talking about, well, during the break, we were talking about how you watch the movies, how you go check this stuff out to make sure that as you build your models, you can incorporate so many different things into them and check out and get the details.
Yes. So for the Enterprise refit that I built, I would watch the motion picture a lot because that's the only one that had the shuttle bay provided in the kit, the real long shuttle bay that takes up more than half the hull. The whole inside's a shuttle bay, basically. And that's the only one that has it. So I would watch that segment over and over and over again. And then when I finally got what I needed, I just let it play.
Right.
And then I would work on something, and I'd look up occasionally, look at the model to see, okay, how do they do the bridge in this one? Because the bridge changes in every single movie. The blinking on the back changes in every single movie. And I just kind of look at them all and then decide, I like that one more. I'll use that one instead.
Gotcha.
So.
Do you use, now you mentioned you use a lot of LEDs. Do you use, I did ask you this, but for our listeners, do you use fiber optics at all?
Very little. I try to use it as little as possible, mainly because they're rather difficult to use. They're very one-directional. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to be looking right on them. And getting them down in place, I mean, you have to use a water-based glue, for instance, because if you use CA, it dries them up and they break.
Gotcha.
If you use hot glue, it melts them.
Gotcha.
So you have to use a water-based type glue, like Elmer's glue, that takes a very long time to dry. But there are models, the Lost in Space pod, for instance. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at a space that's 1/8 of an inch.
Right.
I can't get an LED in there. Not even a surface-mounted LED I can't get in there. So I ran, I think it was about 30 feet of fiber optics inside that shuttle pod.
Wow.
Alone.
Wow.
And so I use that one there. I will use it in the Jupiter 2 quite a great deal. But then I have used it in the refit, inside the shuttle bay. I will use it in the next original series that I build. There are just a few small areas that fiber optic, that's the best thing you can use.
Right. Well, and obviously you use a lot of different things. You use a lot of this, I mean, the LED technology has gotten so, it's come so far. I mean, and it's so affordable now. You've got the tape, all the different tapes and stuff. You can use that. I mean, with the LEDs, I remember in the old days trying to talk about crude modeling. I've been a model railroader for years, and
nice.
Putting the old grain of wheat bulb in and just sticking the house on top of it, and the bulb would get about 400 degrees. Well, it wouldn't get that, but you could burn yourself.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
But in the old days, I mean, you'd have to actually paint the inside of the house because you didn't want the whole house lit up. You wanted one room lit up. But now with the LEDs, you don't have to. I remember spraying the inside of stuff silver so it would reflect, but now you don't really need to do that too much anymore, or do you still?
It depends on the model. So for all my models, yes, I have to do a series of light blocking. Gotcha. And I do it to all my pieces because the most efficient way to light it is with LED tape. And you tape it on one side of the hull, for instance, light it up, and it'll just bounce off all the walls. But you can't have any light bleeding through on the outside because... Right. What would that be like if a ship's flying through space and then there's just a chunk of the hull that's a bright yellow?
Right.
That looks weird. So I have to do that, and that's actually a rather extensive process that takes a solid day to just do light blocking. And even when I do that, it doesn't get it all.
Right.
I still have to do some light blocking when I finally get it all together. So,
interesting.
But I do kind of the same thing. I don't use silver. I just use white. And I'll use a matte or flat white.
Give it a coat of that.
Give it a coat of that because the black I use is very good for absorption. It's not good for reflection. Whereas the white is good for reflection. So it's a lot less expensive than silver, and I can put it on whatever quantities I want and not have to worry about it.
Gotcha.
So.
A couple questions that came in for you, Jonathan. Bill in upstate New York writes in and says, what is the biggest model you have created? How long did it take, and what was it?
So the biggest one that I have created... It's really the biggest one on the market right now. Right now, it was the refit, but there are some coming up from my clients that will be even bigger. I was talking with you about the 1/350 scale Katinga class cruiser. I'll build now, and that one's
that's a Polar Lights kit.
No, that was a studio model made from a resin cast.
Okay.
And he had to buy that from Europe.
Wow.
They only sold that in England.
Wow.
So he had to buy it on ebay.uk, to get it and have it shipped overseas. That will be the next biggest one at that time. I'd say the most complex was the Posher. It was a 1939 Alfa Romeo Spider.
Wow.
And those models, the pistons work, the brakes work, steering column works, it lights up. And this was in the 70s when this thing was made. But it all rolls, and that was the most complex I've ever built.
Wow. Wow. So you do them all. You do everything. You'll do,
Yeah, I had one guy in April ask if I could build him a submarine for a movie. Sure.
And that was the next question. It says, has any TV or movie-related company, have they approached you for one of your models to use in their production, or have you work on their production?
Yeah, just the guy. He was actually a student up at the U in the film department. He went to class with my wife. But and he was making and he always liked how models looked. He didn't really like the CGI stuff, so he asked if I could build him a submarine, and he was going to do it, and I told him absolutely. But I've looked into, he's the only one thus far, because my company's still relatively a new company. It's only been in the past several months, since about February is when it's been up. So I'm still new on the scene, and I've looked into doing models for movies or shows. There's not as big of a calling for it here in Salt Lake City. However, I did meet a guy at Comic-Con in April, this past Comic-Con, who has a buddy down in Hollywood who builds models for movies, and he sent him all my information. So that'll hopefully be an avenue. I will need to be more the one pursuing it to try and find, and then give them my name and go from there.
Terry writes in and says, Jonathan, have you ever done a highly detailed Titanic model?
Not a highly detailed one. I have built one years ago. It was the smaller of the AMTs. My brother had it, didn't want to build it, so I built it. And that one was probably about 1.5 feet long. And I haven't built one since, mainly because I've been, there's so many models out there, and it just takes so long. But it's one of those kind of things, if I had a client who requested it,
you'll build it.
Absolutely. I mean, one guy at Comic-Con, he asked me, he's like, can you build the original series Enterprise for me? I'm like, sure. He's like, can you paint it white? I'll paint it purple for you. Whatever color you'd like. That's where the custom comes in.
Right.
Because you tell me what you want. My client in New Hampshire or in Vermont, he called me and said, hey, can you do this? Yeah, absolutely. And so I just modified it and did it for him. And yeah, so that's where the custom comes in. I can build whatever anybody wants.
Have you ever thought about launching your own line of kits?
Not yet.
If somebody comes and says, "Hey, Jonathan, I want a 4-foot Enterprise, or I want a 3-foot Jupiter too,"
yeah.
Do you? I don't mean to sound ignorant when I say this. Do you have the skills to produce that type of kit, or as you mentioned, in some cases you don't do a kit, you make it out of wood or a model? Is that you look at other avenues?
Yeah, I can make it out of wood. A lot of the scratch building, so models like the Serenity from Firefly, for instance. My skill level is not to that point yet, because they don't make a kit. The only guys who build it, I've only seen maybe 6 of guys who've scratched built them, and that it is absolutely doable. I would need blueprints,
right?
But without blueprints, I've got a few designs I'm working on now of Frankensteining a few Enterprises and Frankensteining some Star Wars models as well to give them a new look, basically putting 2 models into one, creating something of my own. And those are designs I'm working on right now, and I'm just waiting for the time to build them and the funds to do it, because it will be a hefty project.
What is your question? It says, do you have a website with model kits? And yes, you do. But you're more of a you don't really have a lot for sale as far as on-the-shelf stuff. You are a custom model builder. So if somebody wants something, they pretty much have to give you a call, contact you, or do you have some stuff turnkey ready to go?
As far as built or unbuilt?
Built.
I do have a few right now. I have an original series built, ready to go. I've got the Lost in Space pod built, ready to go. I've got a Defiant that I've already been working on. I've got a few more hours left on it. It'll be built, ready to go.
Gotcha.
But then, I've only got a few models coming up on my clients, and once I'm done with them, I will start just producing them. And and I'll have just everything that I build, I'll have on my website.
Gotcha.
And if I still have it, Yeah,
it's for sale.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's just because if I sell it, just means I have to build another one. Darn,
Right. Your space pod is amazing. That's and again, that's right on. If people go take a look at the website at marshallcustommodels.com, that's sitting right on the front page. Yeah. And even though it's small and tiny, well, it's not that small. It's just like I said, when you look in the doorway of that thing, you'll be amazed. It looks real.
I tried to get I watched the episodes. That shuttle pod I think was only about 6 episodes in the 3rd season. And I've got them all on DVD, so I would just queue it up. And
does it change at all, or is it pretty much the same?
That one stays pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But the inside and outside were always different because there were some episodes where you just saw the inside and then you'd see the little model floating through the sky.
Right.
But then they'd have other ones where you'd see the inside and then they would build a life-size version of it, and it would have a little bit different features on it than the model would.
Right.
But yeah, I had to watch that TV show several times to get the color right, but even all the way down to the flooring. It's really just mainly a lot of Lost in Space gurus who will be able to look at the flooring and how I did it. I had to hit it with some sandpaper to give it a brushed look, and it looks like the flooring is in the Jupiter 2.
Really? The Jupiter 2, did it change much through the seasons? I mean, as far as physically change, or just more the interior changing?
More so the interior. When they tried to create, so there's one episode, the first episode of season 3, they created one that was standing up in the middle of a parking lot when they went back in time.
Right.
And that one, you could tell, okay, this is just a prop. They didn't put as much funding in it as they did in other episodes. So the second episode, when they get sucked into that big ship, they put a lot of funding into that one. You can actually see people inside.
Right.
So they did a little bit of changing there. And the inside of the Jupiter, for the most part, it stayed the same, but there were some differences with the control panels, the downstairs in bedrooms, things of that nature, but nothing huge.
Kind of interesting too when you look at when they show that. I think that's where where they kind of take out a little bit of when you're in the ship. When they're shooting in the ship, it seems pretty big.
Yes.
But on the outside, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
It's like, how can there be a lower level in there? And then right toward the end, matter of fact, as I was mentioning with the other guys in the studio before, I watch MeTV when I get home. Lost in Space is on Saturday nights.
Yeah.
When the later, matter of fact, they're showing all the episodes one after another. They're coming up toward the end of the series, the finale, when they had the power core.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, now it's like, no, wait a minute. Now, where does that go to?
Exactly. And see, honestly, that's the thing that drives me nuts about a lot of the TV shows and models. Right. With Jupiter 2, I'm like, okay, yeah, you've got this ship, the upper deck, I'll believe that.
Right.
And then they go downstairs, lower deck, I don't believe that. And then they have the shuttle pod come out of it. Like, where's that stored?
Right.
And then they go down
and the chariot. And where's the chariot?
Where's the chariot stored? Yeah. The chariot's almost as big as the upstairs alone.
Right. And then there is a second bridge. In one of the episodes, there is a second bridge downstairs.
Yeah, it was downstairs. So if you're watching it, and I'll have it on my model kit, you'll have the upstairs where you usually always see them. But if you look right below the window, you'll see they look like doors that are closed, and that's where the secondary bridge was.
Right.
Yep.
Dan writes in and says, this just popped in, emailed me. He said, Jonathan, if you build a Jupiter 2, by chance are you going to make the windows open and close?
I've thought about that, and there are ways to do it, yes. The first one I build, very probably not, because the first one's always the prototype.
Right.
You saw my prototype at Comic-Con, and that's the one where I'm fine with making the mistakes on, getting it right. But a few down the road, I've figured out a way that I can have the doors open up to where you can push a button and it'll slide open just like it does in the show and close back as it does in the show. Because I want to try to make these things as far more interactive as possible. That way it doesn't look just like a nightlight sitting on your table.
Right.
So,
yeah, like I said, it's cool. Yeah. The other thing too, I at one of the Star Trek conventions that I went to, which I thought was kind of interesting, is there is a really hardcore group of people at these Star Trek conventions that are into the shipbuilding and that in the size type of thing. I found interesting. Like in one thing that I found interesting in one of them was they were talking about. I think it's the 5th movie, The Final Frontier.
Okay.
Why would there be that huge chamber where they were flying up and down, 45 decks or whatever?
Yeah.
It's like, now where is that situated?
That would have been the what's it called? The elevator shaft.
Right.
One of the elevator shafts. But yeah, there are all those. So like, if you think about it, and you saw my Enterprise refit, you saw the crystal on the top that's blue. See, that's not correct. It drives me nuts. But there are people who like it that way. That's actually the top of the elevator shaft.
Gotcha.
That goes up and down the neck from the primary to the secondary hull. And there is one shaft, and that's it. That goes from the top all the way down to the bottom.
Gotcha.
So that's where that one.
That's the 40 stories
that's
or,
where it
or
was
whatever
located.
it is.
Yeah, because the Enterprise E was, Picard said there are 27 decks, if I remember correctly, is what I'm trying to listen to it in my head in the movie. So there are 27 decks in the Enterprise E, and the Enterprise E was smaller. They shrunk that one down a little bit. And so if that one had, for some reason I think he said 14 decks, but.
Now, the new movie that came out,
Yes.
it was a different perception of it being built on the ground. I mean, here on Earth.
Yeah.
Did you pull any details out of that? I mean, did you sit there and watch that scene a few times and say, that was kind of cool because especially they never showed the ship being built except in the movie trailers.
Yep.
But that was unique. That was a unique perspective on things. And of course, I'm sure all hardcore Trekkies are saying, okay, so how did it get from the ground up into space? But then in the second movie, when we saw it come out of the ocean, obviously the ship can somewhat fly.
It can somewhat fly. Yes, it's got a lot of thrusters on the bottom of it to keep it upright.
Right.
But it doesn't have landing gear.
Right.
It's too big. It's too heavy. So the original series one, yeah, they can build it on the ground. But what they did in motion pictures, they took the original ship. Okay, we're going to nerd out for a second.
Let's nerd out, man.
They took the ship from the show, basically, from their 5-year mission. They threw it back in space dock, and they stripped it down to its frame.
Right.
And then they built the refit over it. So they made it bigger, better, badder. But they had to do that in space dock. And then after that, the ships just kept getting bigger and bigger until you got to the Enterprise D, which is a
monstrous
giant Hilton floating in space, and this monster of a ship,
right?
Galaxy class that until the Dreadnought class in Into the Darkness was still bigger than Enterprise D, just a monster vessel that has to be built up in space.
Does anybody make that
I've seen a few, but those ones, yeah, those ones are all scratch built though.
Gotcha.
I've seen a few, and they're big. They're 4 or 5 feet long.
Really?
Monster.
Do you think
ship.
AMT or Polar Lights will probably release one of those?
It's a matter of time. So you asked me a question earlier about the J.J. Abrams ship that's very difficult to get, and it is. You can get them on eBay. They're very pricey. I was able to get one for.
So they're not
price,
available in local hobby shops?
Not at all, because they're only sold in Germany. They're made by Revell. They're only sold in Germany because there is a lot of copyright issues going on right now.
Really?
With the name. So no commercial business is permitted to sell it inside the States.
Wow.
You can get it so I bought mine from a guy who had his imported. So I bought it from just a civilian, I bought it from him. Now I'm building it for my personal use.
Is it big like your?
No,
it's
it is small. That one, it comes in a real big box, bigger than the refit box. But that thing, when it's fully put together, will probably be about 14 inches long.
Wow.
The saucer alone has about a 9-inch diameter.
Now, are you going to nerd it out? Are you going to?
You know it.
Are you?
That one, I've already been designing how I'm going to do it. And they only show it in Into the Darkness. But what I'm going to do is when they're positioning the ship to be parallel to the Dreadnought so Kirk can fly across, they do a pan at the very back right at the exhaust port of the nacelle. And you can see inside the nacelle, and it looks like there are a bunch of rods in a circle, and they're flickering. And I'm going to do that with LEDs or with fiber optics.
Gotcha.
To get it all in there. But then there's a certain blinking pattern. The navigation lights and all the other shows, it was just on, off, on, off. Whereas in the new one, it's 1, 2, 3, and then it goes down to the pylons. So it goes 1, 2, 3 up the navigation, 1, 2, 3 on the pylons, and then 1, 2 on the back torpedo launcher, and then it resets 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Gotcha.
So I've had to pay very close attention to that to get it right. But yeah, all those will be in the one I build.
What about Enterprise D? Is there a big one? Have you done any of those? That's got to be kind of a tough one because that doesn't seem like there's a lot of lights on that. I mean, it's kind of a flat looking thing.
When I first, I do have a kit of it. I have the 1/2500th scale, and I've been working on that one. They make it up to 1/1000, but they don't have a big one yet. That's not that's not built by hand. And in that one, when I first started looking at it, I was thinking the same thing. There aren't many lights on this.
No, there aren't.
I started watching the show again. Like, oh, there are a lot of lights on this. The navigation lights go from the primary saucer back to the secondary hull, back to the back of the nacelles. And then it's got a blinking light on top of the bridge and underneath the body. And then the warp engines, they've got the red on there that they didn't have on the refit. But the hard thing about the Enterprise D are the windows. They're all rectangular. Whereas the refit NX1, they're all oval and round. So it's far more difficult to get that lighting correct unless you just want to drill a bunch of holes and not be accurate.
And they almost look like they're, when you look at it, it almost looks like they're green in color. They got kind of a different hue to them. They're not quite white.
Yeah, that model, and that one does change every episode. There's always something different on it in every single episode. And that one, and I've watched it a lot, but every single one just looks so different. And you're right, there are some where the windows have a different color. There's some where the body of the ship looks different. But that one also has a pretty hefty Aztecing job on it with the different colors. And I noticed that in the episode when the Klingons are fighting each other, and Tasha Yar's daughter comes back. In that episode, you can see the Aztecing very well. And when I saw that, I was thinking, this kit
be a nightmare.
That'll be a doozy. Yeah.
Bill writes in, says, "What about Excelsior? Does anybody make a model of the Excelsior or an Enterprise B?"
Yes, actually for both. So the Excelsior, you can either buy that as the Excelsior or the Enterprise. Well, that was the Enterprise B. The Enterprise C was actually, that's what he asked. So yes, they do make that. AMT makes that. And they
in a
make
big
that
one or
in
just
a
small?
1/1000. So that one would be about 18 inches long. So
have you built one of those yet?
Not yet. I've had a few people ask me for them, and I've seen them at my model store, and I've looked at them. Like, I got.
Now, is there a difference between Enterprise B and Excelsior, or are they exactly the same?
For the most part, they're the exact same. I haven't done as much research on them yet. I will need to. But for the most part, it's the same Ambassador class ship. Very little difference in the coloring and whatnot. The markings are basically all that's different. So, but again, I have to do a little more research on it before I'll know for sure.
Gotcha. You do know about all the details of these, huh?
Yes. Yeah, I had a client.
Because now, just one. Well, I got this thought, so I don't lose it. Senior moment. In the original series, it was a Constitution class, right?
Yep.
And then in the refit, it becomes heavy class, Enterprise class, right?
Yep.
It gets its own designation.
Yep.
Because it's bigger.
It's bigger.
Gotcha.
And then it goes to the Excelsior, which is Ambassador class. And then it goes to Enterprise D, which is Galaxy class, the biggest of them all.
Right.
And then the Enterprise E,
Sovereign.
Yeah, the Sovereign class. Right. But then you go back to the Vengeance as a Dreadnought class. The biggest ship that the Federation has ever created. But I have a client right now in Denver. He's wanting me to build him the Ecto 1A. And he's asked me, he's like, now, do you know the difference between the Ecto 1 and the Ecto 1A? I'm like, oh, yeah. And I just started explaining everything. He's like, man, you really do know.
What is the Ecto 1A?
Sorry, so that's the one from the Ghostbusters movie. And the Ecto 1, for instance, they just had a very basic roof rack on it. They had very simple blinking lights, kind of a revolving light, but then they had the police lights on it. And then when Ghostbusters 2 came out, they had the Ecto 1A, which they took the roof rack, but then they added on the "We're back" signs, "Call us." They added on some more tubing, piping, a lot more lights. They added on one more police light, a bunch more blinking. And when I explained it, and I told him, it's like, yeah, and they added on all the caution tape on there. They had the ghost that had the number 2 up on his fingers. They changed the license plate to say 1A. And I just kept going off. And he's like, man, you really do know. I'm like, okay, you have to. I mean,
right.
That's the thing. I need to know the differences here. And when I watch movies, I'm so detail-oriented anyways. That's how I enjoy movies, unless I'm watching The Expendables.
Then you sit back and enjoy.
Then I just sit back and enjoy.
Right.
But yeah, movies, especially when it comes down to models, I really like to look at them to see how guys did it, because even though, like motion picture, even though I don't like the movie, I appreciate the models, and the artists who built them were very skilled at what they do.
Anybody make a space dock, the ones where all the ships go into?
No. I was talking with my client about that the other day, actually, and to make a space dock, to fit the refit inside of it, so my 3-foot Enterprise, to make a space dock, to fit that, you're looking at a model that's 60 to 70 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
It is a monster of a vehicle, just huge. And I think it'd be awesome to build one, but that's...
So nobody makes a small one, or they don't...
No.
Yeah. That would have to be kind of tough, though, because how do you to support... I mean, it's like a big icicle-looking thing.
Basically.
Almost.
Basically. Yeah. And, I was wrong. AMT did build one years ago, a very small one, very basic. It's just a couple pieces you glue together. Mm-hmm. But to suspend that in the air, I've already been working on how to do that with things, and it's just a matter of I build my own rods, building a rod to come up and then have a 90-degree angle and stick in the back. Gotcha. And just hold it flat and have 2 rods come up so it'll be level, straight up and down.
Interesting. Very interesting. What do you think the new Star Wars film are we going to see some new ships, some new stuff?
We are. I've actually already seen there's a video on YouTube of J.J. Abrams, and he's standing next to the newly remodeled and redesigned X-Wing. And it has a very new, modern look to it. So the original X-Wing, it's a little boxy, but it has 4 independent engines on it. Whereas the new one, it has 2 engines that when they lock their S-foils in attack position, they go to 4 individual engines. So it's basically half of an engine per wing, but when it's closed, it's 1 single engine. Or 2 single engines, I'm sorry. And that one, I'm excited for that one. It looked good. He kept it pretty
close, huh?
Pretty close.
They're keeping a pretty tight lid on that movie, aren't they?
Yes, and I'm kind of glad about that. Yeah. I don't want to know a lot about it because I am very committed to the original 3.
Right.
I mean, I didn't like the new 3.
No, I didn't either.
Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie of all times. Great, great film. And when I heard when I heard they were re-releasing him, I got mad. Like, come on, guys, it's been messed up enough. Don't hurt it more. But then when I heard Disney was doing it and what they did with John Carter, I thought they did very well with that. And then when I heard they got J.J. Abrams, I was getting a little frustrated because, like, you can't take a Star Trek person and put him on a Star Wars film.
Right.
But I've seen interviews with J.J. Abrams, and he said that he's been a Star Wars fan since he was a kid and how excited he is to work on Star Wars. I'm like, just don't mess it up or people are going to start calling you Jar Jar Abrams.
Wasn't Lucas involved with it too? Isn't he in as an executive?
No.
Oh, really?
Thankfully. Lucas was the one who kind of messed up the new 3. But he sold Lucasfilm, and everything associated with Lucasfilm has been sold to Disney.
Right.
All of it. And George Lucas, they kind of said, yeah, we'll bring you on as an advisor, but we can ignore you all day long if we want. And so that's what they did, but he has 0 say in what they do. He is out of it. But when you get paid a few $1 billion for your company,
a vacation,
I think, you can do whatever you want to.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's true. That's true. I'm excited to see it. I saw that they're already starting initial plans for another Star Trek movie. I did enjoy the second one, but I was kind of sad to see it was just a remake of the second one. A little different twist on it. Of course, they kept that kind of dark. You actually had to see them. I mean, even going in, unless somebody told you, you really didn't know.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to see something totally unique and different in the third one.
Yeah. And, the one thing I started realizing, I thought Benedict Cumberbatch did an excellent job as Khan. I mean, they got a great guy to play Khan. The thing that I was bummed about it is in the original one with Ricardo Montalban, they met him in their 5-year mission, and it showed how mad he was at them. And then when Wrath of Khan came along, you felt for him because the history there and the hatred. And when you watch the movie, you can actually feel in depth. Whereas this one, Khan just kind of comes in and it's just a new battle for him.
Right.
But I agree with the new Star Wars. I'm getting really excited about it. Me and my brothers, I saw Episode 2 midnight showing, when I was a kid. But as a kid, I always wanted to dress up and go to a midnight showing. So in episode 1, they re-released it in 3D. We went dressed up as Vader and a few other people. But this one, that coming out in June, I have my Stormtrooper armor.
So now, is it going to be released next year?
It is next year. And right now, I haven't seen an exact release date. I'm assuming it's June, since every other one has been released in June. They're all released in June. So that's just my own assumption, but it is 2015 is when it comes out, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they're wanting to do a whole new series on it, like what they did with Marvel. So they'll have one movie just on Han Solo, one movie just on Yoda, and they're going to take this and it's going to explode.
I think huge. You think this is going to be kind of a Generations type thing where the Geritol crowd will kind of,
yeah.
Mark Hamill, they're all up there in age. This is probably going to be I would assume a passing of the torch type of thing.
Yeah, that's what they've got, the entire original cast except Billy D. Williams. I have not seen him on there yet, and I hope he does. He's done more with Star Wars than any other cast has.
Right.
Any of the cast. But they've gotten the entire cast, and that's what it's looking like, because J.J. Abrams, there are 120 books of what happened after the Battle of Endor. And the story, everything. 120 books, and JJ's not using any of them. They're going a whole new route. And, yeah, from what I can tell, bringing in the original cast, it is a passing on the torch. Here's going to a younger generation, trying to make a smooth transition. Because, I thought JJ, he did very well in Star Trek by going back in time.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the show. You're allowed to do that. It's been in the other ones. He couldn't do that in Star Wars, so he had to think of something else.
Right.
So...
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I do enjoy the Star Trek films. I like the technical stuff, and that's why I, going to Comic-Con, seeing your stuff sitting there, just man, that really.
Yeah, I know when they designed the original Enterprise,
that really was cool.
I liked what they did with it. They made it as practical as possible. They tried to make it aerodynamic, but then the navigation lights, you have the red on the port side and green on the starboard side. That's how it is in airplanes. You look at an airplane now, red on the port, green on the starboard. And then also the blinking lights on top of the bridge and on the secondary hull. A lot of planes have that. And that's what I thought was fascinating about Star Trek, because they really did try to make it as realistic as they possibly could. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Something that could possibly exist.
Yeah. Actually, my brother found a petition online of guys who, they got enough people to have a petition to construct the Death Star.
Really?
They sent it to the government, and I looked, you go to, I can't remember the webpage on what it was on, but it was the government webpage, and it was the head of NASA who responded back to it, and it said, and he responded like, even though a Death Star would be the coolest thing humanity could ever construct, the government is just not able to put forth $500 billion to construct a small moon that could destroy a planet. And he just starts going off. And at the very end, he said again, even though it would be awesome, and hopefully one day, but right now we're just not the genocidal maniacs
to do it
as the Empire was.
Well, something, and I put it on our Facebook page, and I'll send the link to you, and if anybody wants to see it, just email me. And this actually resurfaced again in another article. There was a Japanese investment firm, 92-93, that was going to build a full-size Enterprise and make it a hotel in Las Vegas.
That'd be so cool.
But this is now resurfaced again with the same investor group looking for property. I've got about 4 or 5 articles. I'll forward them to you, and I'll put them on our Facebook page. And they were given. I've got it with drawings and designs and everything. It was a refit Enterprise with actually the saucer over Las Vegas Boulevard.
Wow.
And there's some conceptual art drawings, and this same investment firm is now looking at it one more time. I thought it was pretty cool. I did get a chance to go down to the Hilton Hotel. It's no longer there. I mean, the Hotel is there, but the Star Trek Experience, they had some unbelievable models hanging there. I don't know where those went.
Probably thrown in storage somewhere.
Probably. But I thought it was kind of a joke until I saw the 90s article, but again, it has resurfaced again, to be something so unique.
And that would be awesome. I know.
And very doable.
Oh, absolutely. You know, because the refit, that one, you know, if they didn't even build the nacelles, it's not the biggest ship in the world. It's not terribly big. The Dreadnought class, again, was the biggest one at over a mile long. But, you know, you go down to the Constitution class, or even smaller, you know, they're a practical size. I mean, there are a lot of the Rio inside at Vegas where the Star Trek convention was.
Did you go down for that?
I went to the one 2 years ago.
I've never been there. I heard it's insane.
Oh, it was fun. Oh, I had such a blast there, seeing everybody. I talked with Armin, who played Quark in Deep Space Nine, and he was really the only one there who you could talk to without paying him.
Right.
Yeah, he's just a nice guy. But it was a blast. Me and my brother and our wives went down there and for the 3-day weekend. But it's huge. Yeah. We'd park in the parking garage, and in Salt Lake, I park at the Cedar Creek Mall, which is 3 blocks from Salt Palace. And I'm walking with the guy, and I just met, and we're like, man, it's such a long walk. And then I realized parking in the parking garage at the Rio, it took longer to walk from the garage to the convention center, all inside a building.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and you think of that, the Enterprise is not that big. Right. It's not even that big. That building is massive, so it's a very doable thing.
Very doable thing.
Yeah, and you will have people staying there.
Oh, you will.
I'd stay there.
I know. I caught some. I did catch some pictures of the one that was just a couple weeks, about a month ago or whatever, and that was at the Rio. They held or was it the Palms?
I think it's the Rio. That's the one I've been hearing. I know last year that
it was sold out. I mean, they matter of fact on their website. I for one moment I actually thought about, well, you know, it's only 6 hours. Just head down and get a cheap room somewhere and go. And all over their website sold out. You know, it just insane.
You have to get it pretty early on. My brother got our tickets for us, and let's see, it was in September, and he got our tickets in June, and it was sold shortly thereafter that.
Right.
Sold out. Because it's a big deal. I mean, and that's just Trekkies.
Yeah.
You know? But in that convention center, the room they had, there was really never anybody in the sales room when someone was speaking. Pretty much everybody was in the main auditorium, and that's seated. Oh, let's see. So I read the one at the Salt Palace would seat 2,800 people. The one in Vegas would seat double that. And it was nearly packed out the whole time.
Wow.
So 5,000 people just in the room.
A lot of trekkers.
Oh, yeah. A lot of Trekkies.
A lot of Trekkies, yeah, without a doubt. What do you tell people that want to get into modeling and do some of the things that you do? I mean, I think it's a great thing for kids. I've said it so many times, as much as in our guests before you, you know, of course we talked about, you know, all these the games and stuff, and I sometimes think that kids, I'll just kind of go on the record and say I think some of them are on Facebook and the internet a little too much. It's a cool thing building models, and it seems like it's something that it's like so many of these hobbies, kids are just not getting into it like they used to. I mean, that was a big thing for me when I was a kid. Ham radio is still a big thing for me. That was a big thing. Now with the internet and everything else, of course, it's lost its luster. But people that want to get into this, I mean, you've taken it to the extreme with what you do, but that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah, and I agree. There's one buddy I know who keeps asking me, he's like, I want you to teach me how to build these. I'm like, I'm just waiting for you to come over. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I just don't have the time yet. And he's one of those who plays the Nintendo great deal. And, you know, I was the generation that grew up with Nintendos. I had an original Nintendo, and then I went to a 64, but my parents wouldn't let me play it half an hour a day. Other than that, they said, go dig a hole in the backyard. Works for me. And now the ability to create something that I can sit on the shelf and others can enjoy, mm-hmm. instead of living by, hey, there are my initials on a number on a TV screen. I did that, you know, like George Costanza in Seinfeld on Frogger. He's like, I'm still number one, and that's how he defined himself. But being able to take something and create it, build something and look at it and say, I did that. Yeah. I try to explain that to them, but a lot of the guys I know, they just don't understand that.
Now, you develop all your own circuitry and stuff like that. But there are, if you don't have the knowledge base to do that, there are companies out there that sell like for Polar Lights. I believe there are light kits out there you can buy. They're not going to be as detailed as yours, but they are available. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, they make one for the original Series Enterprise. I have not seen one for the refit, but the original Series Enterprise, it comes with motors. You
Really?
can the nacelles spin. Yeah, and it has they call it a potentiometer, where you can, it's a pulse width modulator, with the potentiometer on it. And what it does is it speeds up and slows down the motors. It's awesome, but they only make it for the 1350 original Series Enterprise, the big one.
Right.
I haven't seen a refit. However, there is a company called Tena Controls, TENA Controls.com. And whenever there's a circuit board that my clients want something specifically, if they want something to make sound, for instance, they go there. They say Tena Controls, bringing models to life. And I've talked to the owner, Ralph, and they're just good guys over there, and they're a bunch of big nerds who are pioneering this field. And it really is a pioneer in this field because no one does it. But they create the circuit boards, and they will send you everything you need. You buy a circuit board, for instance. So for the refit, you can say you can get the circuit board that has the landing strip, the engines changing, the navigation lights, and then the main strobe light. You can buy that board. It's a little over $100, and they send you all the wiring, all of the lights, all of the resistors, and the switches you need. The only thing they don't supply is the LED tape for lighting up all the main windows.
And you could buy that on Amazon.
Amazon or eBay. You can get that stuff, 16 feet of it, you can usually get for about $5.
You know who sells it here locally? I'll put a plug in for them.
I haven't found anybody locally.
Yeah.
Oh, you know somebody?
Yeah, Asian City, right over here on 90th and Redwood. They carry it right. Yeah. It was really weird. I went in there. I just throwing it out there if anybody locally is looking for it. I went over there. My wife likes getting stuff over there, and went over there one day, and she was, the place is just. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's just it's huge.
I've been in it. I've seen it. It's right next to the theater right there. Yeah.
And if you go, it's the old Albertsons over on 90th and Redwood. And anyway, you go in there, and then they have an area when you go in, right when you come through the door, and they've got swords and knives and stuff like that. Well, on that back table, if you go in there, and you're allowed to go in there, there's tables full of it. It's all over in boxes, and it's a little more than $5, but I think a kit with 20 feet and a transform and everything, I think it's about $15. But they sell it right there.
Yeah, and see,
any color you want.
That's the thing. I've always bought mine from China because they're the best supplier.
Right.
But I've always had to wait at least 10 days for it.
Right here, right down the street.
And yeah, it may be $5 from there, but I'm willing to pay some more money if I can go down and buy it myself.
They carry it right there. Any color. Well, actually, they sell it. The way you get it is you just adjust the voltage and you make it any color you want. There's a little pot on it, and it just changes it, and you can do whatever you want with it. But yeah, they actually sell it right at Asia City.
Well, I'm gonna have to go over there and look around at it then, because I just bought some LEDs from China for a new model I'm building, and I'm waiting for them to come in, and it's just taking a long time. But if I'm able to get them,
get them right there.
From there,
yeah,
yeah,
they've got them right there.
Remember
little modeling tip from Pat, Asia City.
Thanks, Pat. It'll help me out.
But no, it's just it's so cool what you do, and I encourage people, especially people who are listening, kids with grandkids, or you just want you want to have some fun. Pick up a model there, and of course you build the bigger, higher end ones, but there's a ton of companies that make all kinds of fantasy models and what have you. It's and says, have you ever seen the tripod from the new War of the Worlds in a model?
The new model?
Yeah.
I have not seen that one yet. I've only seen the one from the original show.
Okay.
Which, even that one, Tena Controls, they just finished building a board for it.
Really?
It's great. It has the firing effect, and it even has a speaker on it.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, it's great. But I have not seen one from the new movie yet. Gotcha. And there are some movies, they just don't build them. Yeah. Serenity, again.
Yeah.
They don't build that model.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest. I don't really know why, but yeah, I have not seen that one yet.
Well, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Interesting. Another great movie. A cool model, cool looking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was, I've always liked the model from the original one, and I've seen a few guys build it, and it looks good.
The floating one with the the wire.
Yeah, the
hanging
little
out.
snake coming off the
Coming
top,
out of the
like
top.
the cobra. It looks like a cobra.
Right,
I know, it's not
right,
looking like a cobra.
right. Yeah, the fly-in tripods.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Tom Cruise version, I thought that was pretty cool. Film.
Yeah, they did
those
well.
were pretty cool.
They did well on those models.
Do you watch for? I mean, are you watching the model market all the time for new stuff? I mean, obviously because you're into this so much. Do you ever get press? No, I should say, well, I don't know if I call it a press release, but do you ever get kind of heads up on stuff? I mean, you're kind of deep into this, and if something new's coming out, you kind of get a little bit of a preview or an idea. And...
Yes, my model buddy at West Valley Hobbies, Mike Sanchez, I work with him a great deal, and he lets me know. He's the one who let me know the 18-inch.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Hey, it's going to be re-released in November. Don't buy it for $200. Wait till November and get it for $100."
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you. And I work with him a great deal, and he lets me know what's in, what's out, what's coming in, what's going out, and that's how I can usually try and stay on top of models. So I know when would be a good time to get it and when a good time to build it.
Well, you've amazed me with your talent, man. Like I said, when I met you the first time back in April, I was like, I got to get this guy on the show. It's like I said, you're a master modeler, and all I can do is wish you the best. And again, if people if they want to go check out your site, it's Marshall with 2 L's, MarshallCustomModels.com. You've got a contact page in there. You got all kinds of pictures out there. Just go take a look at it, and if somebody has a request, just send you an email and
they just send me. Yeah, absolutely. And it comes to me, and whether it's a request on pricing or model, and there's some models. Again, my scratch building is not as proficient as my actual building, but there are some models I can scratch build.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as complex, and I can do it. And but on my website right now, I don't have my refit photos up yet.
Okay.
I've taken them earlier this week, and I'm getting them edited, and then I will put them up. But I did make a video that's not up on there yet. It's on my Facebook, which is Marshall Custom Models SLC.
Okay.
And it's the only one, when you type in Marshall Models, it's the only one that has an enterprise photo.
Gotcha.
But I've got a video on there of my refit, and I'll be putting that up so people can see what it looks like.
Right.
And I try every single time I get a model done, I throw it up on there. So every model I've constructed with lights that are good enough thus far, I've put on my site.
And and one thing too, and people can discuss pricing in that with you when they contact you. But just so, I mean, you got it when you're buying stuff of this quality and of this level. Like you mentioned, some of these models, they come from overseas at $150, $200 plus the shipping. A couple $100 worth of circuitry, and then a couple 100 hours worth of work, and you don't want to work for 25 cents an hour, in the paint and everything that goes with it. I mean, the prices I think are more than in line, but this is not a $29 thing that you buy. I mean, these are expensive. They're pieces of art. They're expensive things, and if you want something really unique, like I say, go take a look at your page and contact you, and you're going to have a one-of-a-kind thing. And, in retrospect, even to the cost of this stuff, I've seen on eBay, there's companies on eBay, I can't think of, or there's one company, they make a Star Trek, I think it's a refit, that's all lit up, not at the level of what you sell, and it's like $1,800.
Yep.
So there's stuff out there,
Yeah, there absolutely is. That's probably the Model Masters version.
I think so.
And that is the highest quality model you can buy that is mass produced. If you want anything less, and I tell a few people this at Comic-Con who told me, it's like, well, I can just build it myself. I'm like, please do.
Yeah.
Please do. But I had to tell some people, I'm like, you can buy the kit, absolutely. If you want it like this, you have to have an artist build it.
Right.
That's the only way thus far. You can go get a Model Masters, but they're not going to be
this
detailed.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to call them and say, hey, can you have the shuttle taking off? Yeah, you bet. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's only something you can get. And again, that's where the custom comes in.
Yeah. I did. Yeah. And again, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's, the mass produced stuff is nothing at all like you have. Jonathan, I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. 2 hours flew by.
Yes,
like,
it did.
Just that. And we kind of nerded out talking about Star Trek stuff. But, anyway, go check out his website at custommodels.com if you want a gift that's for yourself. That's a one-of-a-kind thing. Go check it out. Check out our Facebook page at Fringe Radio Show, at fringeradioshow.com. We've got a link, and I did put all the pictures from Comic-Con with your models on it.
I want to go look at that.
Anyway, I want to thank you again for giving up your Saturday night and sharing all your
absolutely.
work with us, and a lot of great movies coming up, and I just want to see what you're going to continue to do, and again, you do beautiful work, and hopefully one of these days I'll be able to pick something up from you.
Well, thanks, Pat, and I appreciate you having me on.
We
Means a
will
lot.
definitely do it again.
Absolutely. Sounds great.